I'm here with Ben,
And I'm here with Ben.
and we got Kuz in the studio.
Hi. And we got Mikey in the back.
And this is the Ben and Ben Show.
This week on the Ben and Ben Show, we got some big singles from some big artists. We're going to be hearing from our sponsor, Hiking Club, and then after, we have Patrick Clark on the podcast to discuss an evening with Silk Sonic. Alright, so the first single up this week is All Too Well, 10-minute version, Taylor's version, From the Vault. Lots of tags on that one. But this is a re-release of her song All Too Well, which came out on her album Red. For anyone who doesn't know, Taylor Swift is re-releasing all of her songs so that she owns them. I know she's enjoyed going back, re-recording stuff. There is a shorter version of All Too Well. So if you don't want to listen to the whole 10-minute thing, there is a shorter version, which I think is like 6 minutes. But
the original album is pretty good. And I mean, she's just like, re-releasing. If you like Taylor Swift, you'll like this album. It's just got a lot of Taylor on it. I like Taylor Swift, but not 2 hours and 10 minutes long.
It is a lot to digest.
Yeah, and it's a lot of Taylor in one sitting.
Which
for me personally.
Yeah, obviously if you're a Taylor fan, a Swiftie per se, you'll love that there's more. There's 2 hours of it. But obviously for people who aren't huge fans of Taylor, who aren't like super invested, it can be kind of daunting. And like this goes for artists like throughout this year. There have been so many albums that are like Donda was 2 hours long.
Yep, Donda and Certified Lover Boy
were
both very long.
So it can be daunting, which I'm not a huge fan of. But regardless, I think it's a great song. It's a 10-minute song that doesn't really feel like a 10-minute song.
Exactly.
To me, which I was actually surprised that it didn't feel like that, because to me she doesn't do a ton to like change what she's doing. She doesn't bring in a ton of new ideas throughout the song. But I think the fact that she's doing such great storytelling, like the focus is on the lyrics here, not necessarily on the instrumentation, but it's rather she's telling a story that's very personal to her that I'm sure a ton of people know about, Jake Gyllenhaal. But we don't need to go into that. But if you want to understand that more, I highly recommend the short film, which I watched, and not as a Taylor Swift fan, but just as, the average listener.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it was really well done. The acting was amazing. I think it really told a beautiful story, heartbreaking story. I think the song is great, works well together. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I'll agree with, you pretty much said all the things I have written down. Again, it's a song that's trying to tell this story in a unique way. I'm not as big of a fan of just the way it sounds in general. I'm leaning more on a 7.5 out of 10.
And that's respectable.
Yeah, it's still, I still think it's a pretty good song.
It's after hours at that glamorous night spot, and you're taking it easy.
Next song is going to be Life of the Party by Kanye and Andre 3000. This song was originally leaked by Drake, so it's technically been out for a while, but with the re-release of Donda on Donda Deluxe, it has been, officially kind of put out there. Well, first of all, Donda Deluxe,
I get why he did it, but I also think it would have been a better idea for him personally to release like an EP even, like a post-Donda EP, because I don't like how he reordered the tracks in like popularity. I don't like how it's even longer. Donda, it has good songs on it. I like the album, but I'm not going to sit through it every single time that it's like changed or re-released, or because he's been doing changes since Donda came out. Without re-releasing it.
Yeah, this isn't something new for Kanye. Like, The Life of Pablo, for a couple years after that album was released, he would go back and make changes to it. And it was just still, on the same album. If I wanted to listen to the best songs off that album, I would just make a playlist. This just feels unnecessary. It's kind of keeping in theme with Donda, where it's bloated but beautiful.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But the song itself, Life of the Party, Andre 3000, his lyrics on this are great. He has pretty much the first half of the song is kind of his deal, I'd say. And it's just a verse after verse about his, mother and father. and like how he's relating it to like Donda himself. Like the beat is good. There's a DMX sample at the end, and I think it actually like ties in really well for the theme of the song, because it's like DMX doing something with his daughter at an amusement park. And so I think that really ties into the theme of the song. That's about parents and, you know, the unfortunate passing of them. The only thing, I think Ben and I agree both on this, is that Kanye does keep with the theme of censoring all the like swear words, and not even like swear words at some point. One of the words that was censored was the word joint, which was an interesting choice. And I think you got to be pretty bold to censor like someone as big as Andre 3000.
Especially rapping about their like late parents. I
Yeah.
feel like I was very surprised with how emotional this song was, and I was really surprised that it wasn't on the original track listing for Donda. And so I looked into that a little bit, and the reason that it wasn't was because there was controversy, there was argument, disagreement between Kanye and Andre 3000 over whether it should be censored or not. And so I'm sure the Drake beef actually helped with it get released, but they did come to an agreement where on Donda Deluxe it is censored, and it's annoyingly censored at that, because on the rest of Donda they'll just like
It'll like mute
cut
the
out,
lyrics.
but instead on here they have like this, the annoying bleep sound.
Like if I were to say, it's like that.
It's so bad. And then, but then they also released Life of the Party as a single, uncensored, which I actually really liked better than the original, just because the bleeps take you out of the storytelling that they're, you know, the lyrics. It just, the bleeps are. I did not like that on the original, but
I'd give the uncensored version an 8 out of 10.
yeah,
Just
I
'cause-
gave it an 8 out of 10 as well. So.
Cool.
They tried to take my voice away. I ain't tried to take your choice away. I just pray the water break.
We had the kids' future plan before they were born.
Alright, next song up, we have Be Alive from Beyonce, which is from a movie which I hadn't heard of.
It's King Richard.
King Richard. Yeah. I mean, it's a song from Beyonce. Obviously, there are great vocals throughout. Really like the harmonies that they have on the chorus. It's really empowering. But I think the message is great, but the music itself just isn't too strong. It's a fairly repetitive song to me. I wasn't too impressed with it, honestly, but
You know, Beyonce, it's kind of like beating a dead horse by saying that she's a good singer.
yeah.
And the backup vocals she has are very nice. Otherwise, like, it's just not really...
It's there.
It's not really, like, impressive to me. I do kind of like where she intentionally sounds kind of strained in like, some of the chorus.
Which we see on Silk Sonic a little bit,
Yeah,
too.
we'll see that later. And I think that's a good, musically, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but I think that was just interesting. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Next song is from a controversial figure. 5 for a Dub by DaBaby is off of his new EP, Back on My Baby Jesus Shit Again. First of all, we'll just remove the artist from the art and review the actual song, and then we can kind of talk about DaBaby himself. But I think it's got a good beat with it's bassy. It's got a piano, like I don't know what you would call this, Ben, but I would like a couple notes.
It's like a motif throughout, and I like the use of piano here. That's really a standout feature for this song. I mean, it's DaBaby, like the flow is nice here.
Yeah.
There wasn't too much to it other than that.
It's
honestly.
a minute 56 long. There's just not a whole lot to it. But I do think he delivers his lines very well. He'll like kind of go up. I'm not sure, like, were you able to tell, like, because during the chorus he'll like go up
he was
line by line.
I think it's very auto-tuned, but I think it's supposed to be singing, like, you know, like it's a weird mix between rapping and singing there. But I would
comes
call
off very nicely.
Yeah.
I think
it works.
Yeah, it definitely works. The EP itself, it's an okay EP, I guess. I mean, if you like DaBaby, you'll probably like that. If you don't, you probably won't like this. And that's usually how it goes, but...
Sounds like DaBaby, you know.
Yeah. All controversy aside, I gave this a 7.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Alright.
Let these niggas try to be ready to slide, big bro. Right sitting up, shitting on everybody, hanging out the window with that body, ready to fire shit up.
All right, next up, we have Erase Me from Lizzie McAlpine, hope I'm pronouncing that right, featuring Jacob Collier. Jacob Collier is the only reason that I found this song, but I was actually very impressed with Lizzie on this. I really liked the vocals. I thought it was really creative with the different uses of instruments throughout. You know, I was just very impressed.
I hadn't heard of Lizzie before this. It starts off like with a very just simple but beautiful piano in the background and her singing. I kind of assumed that it was just going to be like a nice, like kind of laid back song at first, but then like towards the end of the song, it has been progressing throughout, getting more and more energetic, and it just kind of swells into, like, she's singing a lot more energetically than she did at the beginning of the song. Everything's kind of coming up to a climax, and then it just like ends kind of at the end. It'll go back to the energy she had at the beginning. And like Ben said, she's singing super well here.
And I mean, Jacob Collier, he's there to add some vocal harmonies behind Lizzie. I liked like the bridge, like where it kind of culminates, or at least right before the climax of the song. There's these like panning synths behind you. Like if you're listening to it with headphones, it like, I know this isn't a new thing, but I thought it was a cool touch where it was like moving back and forth throughout as it was building, which really gave it an exhilarating feel. So I really like the song. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was pretty good.
I'ma need a bigger bag for the cohort. Trying to make a millionaire out of slum dogs. Bet that head crack blunt force. Cozy with the east.
And then our last song for our singles this week is 2010 by Earl Sweatshirt. I really like Earl Sweatshirt, and I was glad to see he was releasing some more stuff. It's a relatively short song. The beat is kind of all over the place, and I think if I was a rapper and I heard someone told me rap over this beat, I would be like, I think Earl did a very good job with finding a way to create a flow for this beat. Because it's very interesting. It's all over the place. He's definitely had better flow for admittedly simpler beats. So it's kind of a shame that like it kind of is, I don't know, it's just detracted a little.
I think the beat itself, I could be wrong, but it at least gives the vibe where it's played forward, and then I think it's also played backwards. Like after that, like it kind of is like reverted back, or at least that's the idea that they were going for, I think, and which I think was a very creative way to use that. Which
I didn't catch that. Yeah, if that's true, that's very.
I could be wrong.
Creative.
So, but
Post-processing Ben here to say that Ben Obby is right about the beat being played forward then backward.
I thought it was an interesting song. It was a little clunky at times, but obviously it's an interesting creative beat. It kind of didn't go anywhere for me either. It kind of was it's not a long song, but it didn't really go anywhere. The last like 50 seconds of the track, it's just the beat. There's no vocals. It's just the beat, and it's kind of the same thing that we had heard throughout the first 2 minutes.
It's like so unnecessarily drawn out.
Yeah.
Like
so,
you could have just had 10 seconds of the beat and then you're done.
Yeah. But instead it's like 50 seconds, and obviously it's a cool beat, but 3 minutes in it's like, okay, we get it. It's a cool idea. You're kind of milking it now. I gave it a 7 out of 10 still, though. Well,
I almost think that the reason he made it 50 seconds long is because without it would have been like a minute 30-second song.
This is true.
Maybe he was just like, I'm out of ideas. Time to just draw this out. But I gave this a 5.5 out of 10. I wasn't very impressed. And that is our singles for this week. I don't know if we're going to a Coos review or not. Probably not.
Yeah, because Eli is currently sick, so we will see
if there is no Coos review after this, then we were not able to do it. But if there is, we were able to do it.
Yes. So just stay tuned for that.
See ya on the other side, whatever that may be.
Yes.
We're keeping that.
Next up, we got 777, which is, right back into the player aspect persona of the album. It's the song that feels like the most Bruno Mars to me.
Yes.
And it's, it's about gambling. Yeah. But it's very groovy with the bass and guitar riff throughout. There's horns on here that sound really good. It's just kind of a fun song. Not much to say other than that.
My first listen was for sure my favorite new song they wrote. And if I could describe my game in one song, I think 777, how smooth it is, would be that song.
Okay.
Interesting take from Patrick. I thought the guitar.
Chance.
I thought the guitar was in the beginning. It's a very greasy guitar.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of like the Isaac Hayes funk. I don't know. It worked very well leading up into the song. I agree with everything that Ben said. I can't confirm what Patrick said. But, yeah.
I would say it's also probably my favorite bass line.
Really?
Yes.
It's probably my first, second favorite bass line. I thought it was very groovy. If it was like a standalone bass part, I feel like it'd be very fun for a bass player.
That I definitely got that from this.
I don't know if we had a bass player who could ask about that.
Yeah. I gave this a 7 out of 10.
Really?
Yes. I kind of had to because it was
777. Yeah, that fits.
Okay.
I gave it a 9 out of 10.
It was pretty good.
I highly rated like all these songs. I really like this album. But...
I'll give this a 9.7 out of 10.
Dang. Okay. Speaking of good bass lines, Skate.
Not the last single that they released, but the last single that we haven't talked about.
Yes, which I personally think is criminally underrated.
I have to agree.
I
just have to.
Probably my favorite single that they released.
It's so good. And like on Spotify, like the least listened to single out of the 3, which I get, like all of the singles are very solid. But I just think this song, it's so catchy. All of them are pretty catchy. But my favorite line, which I know Patrick loves as well. In a room full of dimes, you would be $100.
Yep.
If being fine was a crime, girl, they'd lock your lil fine ass up in a tower.
In a room full of dimes, you would be $100. If being fine was a crime, girl, they lock your little fine ass up in the tower.
It's just a great line.
It's the best line of the whole album.
It's
Honestly, maybe the line of the year.
the strings on here are great as well. It's just a great song.
Yeah, they have an entire orchestra for this.
Really?
I don't know if now in like technology you can like just make an orchestra using like a bunch of machines, but I don't know if they have an actual orchestra that they recorded with.
I think
not.
they would. Like
Yeah.
this sounds
put
authentic.
I wouldn't put it past them to like actually have the whole thing.
Yeah.
That sounds like something they would do. I have to agree.
I gave this a 10 out of 10.
I gave this an 8.5 out of 10, which is
I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10. The last song on the album is Blast Off, which personally I do not love, and I would put it in my bottom 3 of the album.
I love these songs so much that it's hard to like rank them. But after my first listen, I think this was in my top 3 actually. I was very impressed with this song. I think it does a great job of being a closer for the album. It has like, you know, that R&B kind of like psychedelic vibe. I really think that the vocals and bass are really good. There's a guitar solo. It's really good. I think it's just a great song.
By the end of the album, I get to the song and I'm just like, it's kind of the same old thing at the beginning. And I'd say this is the song where they try the most different things instrumentally. Of course, like with the psychedelic kind of influences on the synths and guitars. It's a little drawn out. It's like the longest song on the album, in an album full of 2 to 3 minute songs. This is like a 4.5 minute song. And the end is just Bruno Mars singing "Can We Take It Higher" over and over. And it's just the same thing as it, like, the key keeps going up and up.
See, I was gonna say, I actually really like that. Because they sing "Can We Take It Higher" and they keep modulating up and up.
Yeah, that's good. But, like, can we take it higher? Or should we just stop the song? Is my question.
Okay, I do think it is a bit long, but I do think that it has enough going on, for me at least, that it keeps it interesting. I love the ambience that it, like at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, it changes vibe, kind of like where it's just, it kind of seems like you're floating for a second. And it's just the calm before they start singing "Can We Take It Higher?" Which I actually really liked how they did that. But I get how it could feel drawn out. I think it's a great closer.
At the end of the song, they do have like a little, it closes the album, wraps it up very nicely. Bonus points to the song for that. But I am more with Patrick on this isn't my top song off the album. But then again, I gave it a 7.5, which is still like pretty good. We've reviewed albums where like none of the songs got a 7.5.
Yeah. See, I gave this another 10 out of 10. Wow. I really like this song.
I give this one an 8.
Well, and that's the last song. Overall thoughts on the album, guys?
Personally, I like Anderson more in this than Bruno.
Really?
And I also think it means more to him. If it's like a school project, and you have the dollar where you can give each person a certain amount they deserve, I would give Anderson 55, and I would give Bruno 45. And I feel like it just means more to him since he's just a lot less known than Bruno.
Yeah, I see that.
And I think they're just so similar, and I feel like this is really going to elevate him going forward in his musical career, and I'm very happy for him. I think this was a great showcase to show his skill and what he's all about.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I don't think that either of them outshine one another on this album. I think that it's truly a duo. You can tell that they're not trying to one-up each other throughout. It's really them collaborating. They'll take different parts, they'll sing together. They have different moments to shine, really show what they're capable of. And I think that they work really well together. I hope this isn't the last we see of them
Not
together.
at all. I think, going off what Ben said, they just know what their strengths are when it comes to their vocals. In writing, they knew when to step back, let the other one come forward. I don't think any of them was trying to outshine the other.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the definition of a duo, I think they pulled it off.
Anderson .Paak brings in, I think, a little bit more complex musical ideas.
Yes.
The more jazzy chord structures and like making it a little bit more innovative. Bruno Mars takes the more pop aspect, kind of fuses them together, and I think it works really well together.
And assuming that they write their own lyrics, I think Anderson brings better lyrics to the table. Both of their lyrics are very good. They're funny and flirty throughout the entire album. I just think I enjoyed Anderson's lyrics a lot more.
I could be wrong here, but I think Anderson usually has the verse more often than Bruno does, so that might be why. But last episode, I made the claim that Silk Sonic does not miss, and Ben said, we'll see. And I am here to say, Silk Sonic does not miss.
And I am here to say that I agree with that. I think Silk Sonic has a great album. Both of these artists are heavily inspired by the funk giants of Isaac Hayes, Stevie Wonder, and Curtis Mayfield, and many others. If like you got someone that liked those guys a lot, you could bring this to this album, and they would be able to see that influence, but then it's been taken a step forward. Maybe not forward, but in another direction.
It's more modern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to say it, but I believe this is the album of the year.
Personally, not my album of the year.
It's up there. It's up there.
It's definitely in that top 5, in no particular.
It's going to be hard not to be for me, honestly.
Yeah.
I really like this album. The only critique that I would have, I think you've already mentioned this, it does have a similar feel to it throughout. Like, the sounds that they use are pretty similar throughout the 9 songs. But then again, it's like a 30-minute album, so I don't think that it ever gets anywhere close to being drawn out at all. It's just that...
It's that quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Like some albums that have been released this year.
Yeah, where it's just like 2 hours long. There's like a couple good songs, and the rest of them are just like, could we just not have those? But anyways, they don't do that here. They have 9 tracks, which I know some people were disappointed with, but I think quality over quantity, really good album here. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10.
Probably my biggest critique of this album is that it has a very limited instrument palette, and that, you know, you hear a lot of the same things throughout the songs, and they're used in a lot of the same ways. And when they do try to go out of that instrumental palette, it doesn't always work as well as it could have. I would personally give this a 7.5, and I would give it an 8.5 if it weren't that so many of these songs fall into that trap of kind of feeling samey. They're good songs, but it's just, you could have done more. As an album, I think more could have been done with like the concepts and the instruments. I mean, I've said a lot more good things than what I've said bad.
Yeah.
Bruno Mars was my favorite artist growing up, and I'm happy he's back. And this is my album of the year, and I'm giving it a 9.8 out of 10. And this could be my favorite album of all time.
Of all time,
Of all time.
Wow.
I very
high
much
praise.
enjoyed this album.
Yeah. And I will say, I had high expectations, like super high expectations going into this. And the fact that they met and exceeded those expectations, that says a lot.
Yeah.
They did not disappoint.
Patrick, thank you for coming into the studio
thank you.
today.
Of
course,
It was a great conversation. Don't know where to go from here.
Thanks, Patrick. This has been the Ben and Ben Show.
See you next week.
Who y'all came to see tonight? Who gon' get the ladies feeling something? Ooh!
Welcome to this week's album review. This week we got Patrick Clark with us in the studio. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm just so happy to be here, and it's an honor to really just talk about Silk Sonic with you guys.
So it's great to have you here. What kind of music are you into, Patrick?
I love me some One Direction, and I love listening to some throwbacks, and I love Mamma Mia. It's my favorite soundtrack ever.
Yeah,
All right.
I
all
praise.
right. Well, cool. Well, let's get right into our album review. So let's just start from the top. Well, actually, let's explain. Silk Sonic, what they're about. It's a duo between Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, and they encapsulate the same sound essentially. They both have had very different successes commercially.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people would know of Bruno Mars versus Anderson .Paak, but this duo definitely has brought Anderson .Paak into the limelight. And this is their first album as a duo together.
I think they just met while Bruno was doing touring. I think Pac opened for him or something. It was something along those lines, and they kind of just hit it off right away. And then immediately we're like, hey, we should write some music together.
Yeah.
And then Silk Sonic was born.
And I think the band name was born out of Bootsy Collins. He is the voice that you'll hear throughout the album that kind of narrates some of the songs. And Bootsy Collins named the band Silk Sonic. Although I don't know, do you know why it's named Silk Sonic?
Nope.
Okay, well,
It's a cool name, though.
it's a cool name. Maybe that's just it, but...
First song, Silk Sonic Intro. It's actually the first song that they released. It was the day before Leave the Door Open, their first single. They released Silk Sonic Intro. And I think it does a great job of really giving the idea of what they're about, how this album is going to sound. It really locks in the vibe of the album, and I think it does a great job of opening.
Yeah, I think it's a good intro, and like you said, it kind of sets up what you're going to expect throughout the album. Bootsy Collins kind of introduces the band, and I think that's a lot of fun. I think as well as showing you what this album is going to sound like, it kind of shows you what the energy of the album is going to be as well. So,
I mean, I agree. I think just releasing the intro first was a good idea, which you don't see that often, but it really just set the tone. I feel like it walked so the album could run.
This is true.
This is so true. I mean, it's just a minute long. They want this song to do in the album. I think it does it pretty well. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Same. Yeah, 8 out of 10 for me. So
the first song that was released on the album was "Leave the Door Open." When was it released?
I think it was April. Or
Yeah, it was sometime in the spring. Well, Mikey, look at that real quick.
March 5th.
Okay, yeah, so
It's been out for a while. Yeah.
It's got good call and response lyrics. I think that's kind of one of the unique things about the song.
I have a question for you guys. If you had the whole album right now and you could release one song early, would this be your first choice? Because for me, I really like this. I think it's easy, catchy, and it really just shows the groove that they have.
Yeah. I'd say I'd release this. I think they made the right choice. This is the right song to release first. It's been out for, since March, but I think it's still super entertaining to listen to, even though I've heard it thousands of times. I haven't gotten sick of it. Ben, you probably have.
Oh, well, I haven't listened to it thousands of times, but if you let me listen to it 1,000 times, I'd probably get pretty sick of it.
Well, on the radio. I didn't choose to necessarily listen to it thousands of times.
Not gonna lie, I don't really listen to the radio.
Okay, well, regardless, it's been out. A lot of people are playing it. I've heard it a lot.
Yeah.
Still a good song. I think it, that shows how good it is. I think it's just a standout track. So.
I think it, and going back to Patrick's question, I do think it's a good first single for this album because it's one of those songs where it almost feels deliberately catchy, and with the chorus and all. I mean, I'm pretty I think the three of us could think in our head what the chorus is. So I think that makes for a good first single because it kind of gets people hooked.
Yeah.
We're looking good here. I gave this an 8.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 10 out of 10.
Oh, damn.
I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 too.
I think it's a great track.
I think it's brilliant.
I know we disagree on giving things 10 out of 10, but I think that this is a 10 out of 10. But
very nice. Next song is Fly As Me.
Some controversy here, but
really?
Yes, we'll talk about it.
Okay. I think it's got a funky bass and guitar for the beginning. I think that kind of that drew me in, and later on, after they've started singing, it brings in some horns, and I think that, they're really just going in on the funk here. It's just a really bolsterous song. I think it really,
I
with the lyrics.
I love the word choice.
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
Well, what did you think of it?
Well, to add on, Pac raps on here. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that works well. It adds some flavor to the album. The only controversy that I was mentioning before is that at least I think I'm on Silk Sonic TikTok, right? But a lot of people are saying that it sounds like it'd be in an Old Navy commercial. And while I can't envision that like pretty clearly, I don't think it's a fair criticism because it's almost as if they use popular songs in commercials.
It's like saying I don't like Lil Nas X because his songs are everywhere. Well, yeah, because his songs are like really popular. The companies choose songs specifically because they're popular.
Yeah, I don't really understand that criticism. I can envision it. It doesn't detract anything for me.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Personally, I think it was one of my favorite choruses. I think it's very catchy and easy to remember, and I feel like with like your Old Navy comment, I feel like that's almost why, just because of how easy and like rememberful the chorus is.
Yeah.
I give this a 7.5 out of 10.
I give it a 9 out of 10.
I'll give it like an 8.7.
Okay.
Oh, very specific.
Yeah. 8.7. Wow. Yeah. Next up, we have After Last Night. It's pretty groovy. It's more laid back than the first 3 songs. The vocals are very solid on this track. Has some, synths in here. It has Bootsy Collins and is it
Thundercat.
Thundercat.
And if you don't recognize the name Thundercat, you will probably recognize this sound. Yeah, I think Thundercat's pretty good. Big fan of him. The thing, and of course Bootsy Collins is like just adding, that layer on top for this song with his, I guess, vocals. He's not really singing or anything, but his vocals add a lot to it. And like you said, a slower song. This song reminds me, and this has been a thing that's I saw online, and when I heard it, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But this sounds like a song that Dick in a Box would parody. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I went and listened to these 2 songs back to back, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
I'd have to go back and listen.
I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I would have come to that conclusion on my own.
That's not my first thought when I started this song, but
no, it wasn't mine either.
I will say I think this is probably my least favorite track actually on the album, just because I think it takes a while to get going, and it's kind of slow throughout, which I get. That's like the feel of the song, but and there are moments where like the synth will like amp it up, and I really like that. But I feel like it just takes a while to get going. There's not as much to talk about here, but it's still a very solid song. It's just probably my least favorite compared to the rest of them.
I really like the vocalization towards the end of the song. I think that really swells to like you said, it does kind of take them a while to get there, but once they do get there, it's pretty good.
I'd have to give it Ben. It's probably my least favorite song. I don't have too much to say about it. I'd probably give it a 7.8 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I also gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
that's surprising that this is...
It's one of 7.10, and that's still very good.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's just probably, in my opinion, the weakest out of the bunch. Which
I have to agree.
Stands to say how much I like this album. But
I thought it was like kind of down that line of mid songs, if you will.
It's mid.
Even though I hate that word.
Patrick says that a lot. I'm surprised you said that before Patrick did.
Nothing so Sonic can write could be mid.
It's mid compared. There's got to be a better word for this, but it's okay compared to the rest of the songs. Like
I get that.
I understand. Yeah. The next song is "Smoking Out the Window," which was released a week before the album. And personally, I thought after "Leave the Door Open" and "Skate," I thought there's no way they have a third good song, but they did it and they delivered. And the whole week, I just could not wait for the album. And I think how they released all the songs before the album was perfect, and I think this one was perfect, and I love this one. I didn't think I would, but honestly, it could have been my favorite out of the 3 early releases.
Yeah, honestly, I was not... Well, I had high expectations, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised with how good this song was. And it just... the way, like Patrick said, the way that they released it a week before, and everyone was listening to it, really built up the hype for the album. And even though it was just a week later, it still felt like an eternity waiting for that album. But I will say, I think it's a great song. It's very catchy. Bass and drums are very, very solid on here.
I'm gonna agree with all of that. It's been said before, but it built up a lot of hype for the album.
Yes.
And the only thing I'll add to the conversation there is that the lyrics sound like a 70s version of what Future would write.
You're making some interesting comparisons here. 70s version of what Future would write.
The one that reminded me of it was...
Look here, baby, I hope you find whatever it is that you need. But I also hope that your trifling ass is walking around barefoot in these streets.
And the way the song sounds and the lyrics is what drew me to that conclusion.
Interesting. That's
So it's definitely like a 70s R&B like light feel. With
yeah, definitely.
I gave it a 8 out of 10.
Really?
I give it a 10 out of 10. So
I'm giving that one a 10 out of 10 too.
I feel like the way we review music.
yeah,
The way we look at, like, I feel like when it comes to like the 0 to 7.5 out of 10, we look at it the same way. But when it
then
comes
once
to like after that,
yeah.
because I find it very hard to give a song a 10 out of 10.
And I get that, but I also think this song does exactly what I want it to. Like, I think
that's good.
Yeah. So, like, there's nothing I would personally change about it. So
I try to remove what I want from a song as much as possible when I'm like, I just try to look at it because that's especially helpful when you're looking at music that you don't really like. Like, if I was to review an album that I already know that I'm not gonna like, then I know there's already not a whole lot of stuff in there that I'm looking for. So in order to give it like a fair criticism of just how the music is, then I have to kind of remove my expectations from it.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but I also there has to be a balance though too, because like when you're listening to something that you do like, and I feel like you can have that same mindset of you're just gonna listen to it as music for what it's worth, not necessarily how personal it is. I feel like if you like an album or like a song and you think that it's really good, then I should give it a 10 out of 10.
Well, there are like songs that I like a lot. For me personally, I'd give them 10 out of 10s. But if I was to like review them on the show, I'd try to look at them from a much more critical point of view.
So yeah, you got the balance then.
Next song is Put On a Smile. And I like there's a distorted guitar in it with the orchestra in the back, which I thought that was cool. Great vocalization again. It's more of a sentimental song than some of the other ones, but I think the harmony that just highlights how well Anderson and Bruno can work together.
Yeah.
And I guess towards the end of the song, there's a key change that seems kind of corny at first, but it kind of works itself out, and you're like, oh, okay, that sounds good.
For my first listen through the album, this was at first my least favorite song, just because how serious it was, and all the other songs were so groovy, and like, I was racking to them, and then this one, every time I listen to it, it gets a little better for me. And I would definitely say it's definitely in the middle of the pack for me, and it's no longer at the bottom.
Okay, yeah. It's definitely the more serious song from Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. Like, throughout the album, they have these, like, lyrics where they're like, they're just players, you know, they're...
Yeah.
But where this one, it's more serious.
I'd almost give them bonus points for trying to separate a song from the like main groovy, upbeat stuff that they've had, because I think I'll get more into this later, but I think one of my biggest critiques of this album is that a lot of the songs are about the same thing. So I think what this song brings to the table is good for the album.
Yeah, and the vocals are really good here. There's one note that like Bruno Mars sustains at the end. On the like first listen, I was like, that's a little bit of a stretch there. Like he's straining his voice. But like after listening to it again, I think it really fits the theme and like meaning of the song. It's more of a raw performance from him. It's like you can feel the emotion. So I think it's not a critique at this point. It's just more adding to the meaning of the song. So
I think you get a lot of singers that will intentionally themselves sound strained. Like in the Beyonce single, she sounds very raw in that, just because the song is about so much.
And I mean, these big name artists, they're obviously doing it on purpose, because we know that Bruno Mars can sing.
And if it sounded strained, they would just auto-tune it.
Yeah. So all right.